Okay, good evening, Pastor Blaine.
Good evening.
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me.
No problem.
Okay, so I have a few questions here that I'd like to ask you about leadership. But first, if you could tell me your name.
My name is Blaine Winderl.
And how old are you? Forgive me for asking.
I am 65.
Thank you. What is your current leadership role?
I am associate pastor and men's group leader at Caden City Church in Coppers Cove, Texas.
And do you have any previous leadership positions?
Yes. I was also associate pastor for the gospel service in South Korea about 20 years ago. Also carried several leadership positions in the military. Those are too many to name.
Awesome. So quite a life of leadership. All right, so let's get started. So some say leaders are born, some say they are made, and some say they are a combination of both. What do you feel is true about yourself? Please explain.
I would say probably both, but the most important thing is that I believe there's a leader inside of everybody, and it takes God to bring it out. And He will, many times, He put me in a position where I had to step up and be a leader. I had no choice, and that was in the military, because I say it was God that pushed me into that, because I didn't grow up ever thinking that I was ever going to be a leader of any sort. But when I got my first promotion in the Army to an NCO, which is a totally different kind of leadership than I use now, because in the Army you have UCMJ as your leverage to make people do what you know they're supposed to do. As a Christian leader, a spiritual leader, you have to earn credibility. Even in the Army, even though you have that leverage with UCMJ, they are forced to respect the rank, but respecting the person has to be earned.
Absolutely. I love that. So what was your first leadership position and how did you get it?
I was a squad leader in the military, and I got it by being promoted to E5, which is the second NCO rank in the military, non-commissioned officer. And I had to learn a lot.
What are some challenges you faced when you first started leading others?
Well, I guess it goes back to earning that credibility, because again, with the military, UCMJ is your leverage and the authority that you have as an NCO. You can issue lawful orders, and if they don't obey them, you can initiate UCMJ action, which will cause them a lot of consequences. And they know that at the beginning, so they know that there can be consequences that cost them if they don't obey a lawful order.
What is something you believed early in your career that you no longer believe today?
That respect was automatic by virtue of the leadership position. It doesn't work that way. People may say what they need to say to your face, but when they walk away, the respect is basically non-existent. And I'm going to stick to spiritual leadership because that's where I'm at. I have had to learn over years that you have to let people be who they are. And it takes the Holy Spirit to help you to speak to them and meet them where they are. And all of my credibility, in all honesty, comes from God. I can't I can't take up any credit for myself, because God has taught me so much. And when I know that what comes out of my mouth is from Him, I don't have to worry about credibility. That's all His.
How do you believe you have best influenced those you lead to follow you?
Say that again.
How do you believe you have best influenced those you lead to follow you?
By speaking the truth. Always stick to the truth. And anytime I step up to speak in a teaching position or on a platform, preaching from the platform, I always rely on the Holy Spirit. Before I get up there, multiple times, I say, God, this is yours. You have to populate the words of my mouth. Because if it comes from me, it's a dud. I'm shooting blanks. It has no power. But if I say what God tells me to say, then those that choose to ignore it are not accountable to me, but to Him.
Good answers. Here's a big question. What are the biggest challenges facing Christian leaders today?
I'd say very related to what I just said, because I've seen a lot of Christian leaders. They may have started out well with the same mindset that I just described to you, but somewhere along the line, maybe sooner, maybe later, that they started relying on their own intelligence and their own schemes. And I have said for a long time, there are two kinds of preachers: those that are trying to make a name for themselves, and those that are trying to make a difference. And if you're in it to make a difference and not worried what people think of you, I heard this saying one time that people think more highly of those that don't care how highly people think of them. If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
So the challenge that ministers, spiritual leaders, Christian leaders face today is letting their guard down and letting the enemy get in their mind about who they are.
True. Have you ever made a leadership mistake you learned deeply from? What happened, if you're willing to share?
Yes. Let me tell you a story. I was stationed in South Korea. My first tour in South Korea. I was associated with a ministry called the Fishermen. And what we did, we would go out on Friday nights. We would take bilingual tracks down in the red light district where the soldiers go to party. All manner of partying. Within a 2 or 3 square block area, one day we counted 96 nightclubs. So we was down there and we would pass out tracts, gospel tracts, and if we struck up a conversation, we would give them a tract and invite them to the Bible study that was the next night. And after doing this with this group for a couple of weeks, they asked me to speak at the Bible study. And when I knew that I was going to speak, I prepared, heavily prepared, spent excess time in the Word. Well, there really is no excess time in the Word. It's a lot of time in the Word, praying, and I had like 3 or 4 pages of notes, and I just took it before the Lord, and I basically said the same prayer that I shared with you a while ago, and that is, Lord, you got to help me with this. I cannot do this on my own. And He answered that prayer heavily, big time, because that night there was like 40 people at that Bible study, and it was like, in some aspects, people had to stand up. There was no place for them to sit, and we held a Bible study at a Methodist mission there in Tongjichon, Korea. And that night it went very well. People were ministered to. People's lives were changed. Because I remember what I spoke on. I spoke on faith. And it was like, it went so well that they asked me to do it the following week as well. And it's like, I got prideful. I really got prideful. And I was sticking my thumbs, oh yeah, I got this. And my sister had sent me this Bible study called From the Cross to the Throne. And I'm just going to tell you my inner conversation with myself. It's like, man, I got this. All I got to do is just follow these notes. It's going to be awesome. And I spent absolutely no time before the Lord. I spent no time studying in this study to know what it actually said. And we had this tradition, if you will, that whoever was teaching would sit on a piano bench, straddle this piano bench, and put our notes or whatever in front of us, and we would speak from it. And it's like, when it was my time to speak, I put this Bible study down in front of me on the piano bench in front of me, and all of a sudden I drew a blank. I had nothing to say in front of 40 people. And the only thing that I could do was be honest and I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for this. I'm going to have to give this over to somebody else.
That's humbling.
And somebody, the guy, the main leader of the group, he stepped up and he did something impromptu, which is usually the best kind. But I was so embarrassed. I embarrassed myself, I humiliated myself, and I learned my lesson that it's not me that does the teaching, it's God. And if you ever forget that, you're going to fail.
Well, that is a good lesson.
Hard lesson.
Hard lesson. Thank you for sharing that. What does servant leadership mean to you, and how does it relate to your current position as a leader?
Well, first off, the servanthood is to God and then to the people. Because I thought about this today. I remember reading this question today. Is it is God that puts you in a leadership position, and it is God that will exalt you in front of the people. I don't know if you remember the story of Joshua. God told Joshua, he said, it's in Joshua chapter 3 verse 7. He told Joshua, he said, today I will exalt you in front of the nation of Israel, because I will show the people that as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And you will lead this nation into the promised land. Transposed. So, and there's another verse that says, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and he will exalt you in due time. So first and foremost, your servanthood has to be to God. Your trust has to be in God. You have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is God that put me there. I committed to God a long time ago. I will never make my own preaching dates. It has to be you. I will not push myself into a preaching engagement. It has to be God. Because if it's not God, then it's me. And that won't go anywhere. And secondly, that once God puts me in that position, I am the servant to the listeners, because I am responsible. James 3:1 says, let not many of you become teachers, because we fall under restrictive judgment. I have taken that serious from the day that I knew that I was going to be standing in front of people. Because whatever I say, if something I say changes somebody's life and it's in error, I am responsible for their error. So I've taken that responsibility serious, so that I am a servant to them to share with them what God has given me to share, just like He gave it to me.
Well, I hope to do the same. What do you wish you had known before becoming a leader, and why?
The heavy responsibility that comes with it. All authority, all leadership comes with responsibility. If you're not willing to take that responsibility, you need to walk away. Because there's a lot of people that want to have authority, but there's not that many people that want to be leaders. There is a big difference. I remember in the military, there was a lot of so-called leaders that used authoritarian type leadership, and yes, they accomplished things, but the people that they led hated them. I don't want to be that kind of leader. And especially in spiritual leadership, Christian leadership, if you don't love the people you're leading, you're just preaching theory.
I can assure you, you're not that kind of leader. All right, last question. When other people look back on your leadership, what do you hope they remember?
That I always represented God well.
Well,
in a nutshell.
I think you're doing a fantastic job of that, if I get a say in it. And I thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. I think you have fantastic answers, and they're definitely helpful for me. I will take them all to heart and consider them greatly in my future. So,
if I was to leave you with a statement that will help you along the way, that whenever you find yourself in a leadership position, it's going to take you a little while to find out what kind of leader you are, what your style is, because everybody's different.
mm-hmm.
And I would also urge you that before you step up in front of people, you need to say a similar prayer, long before it comes to a point where you step behind the microphone. God, this has to be you. You populate my words, because if it's not your words, they're worthless.
I will do that. Thank you.
All righty.
All right.